In Les Miserables, there is Inspector Javert who pursues a mayor who was wrongly arrested and who escaped from a prison. I said, Rudy, you are pursuing people like Inspector Javert with an intensity that's not acceptable. And he said, who is Inspector Javert?
Giuliani, on balance, was a good mayor, in my opinion. I think he did a lot of good. I think he cleaned up a lot that had to be cleaned up in New York and made it, in some respects, safer. But Peter Gation did not impact on the safety of New York.
It's clear that the Giuliani administration did not see the benefits of clubs.
Clubs used to be incubators of culture.
Disco, punk, hip-hop, house music, techno, electro, acid house, all of these are genres of music that began in nightclubs. Without nightclubs, would they exist? I don't know.
Without the Limelight, I'm sure I'd be making music, because I've been making music my whole life. And some of the bombastic music I make is definitely the product of spending way too much time in the Limelight in the late 80s and early 90s.
And the Limelight birthed a lot of interesting culture. What culture does nightclubs birth these days? You know what I mean?
There's no nightlife now. It's stand around and pose and act like you're fabulous, and yeah, you're drinking and you're getting drunk, but you're not partying.
I mean, the Limelight was a kind of a high watermark in terms of that kind of era of decadence. And once that crashed, I mean, that whole idea crashed with it. And that really, to me, was the end of that period of New York nightlife. It wasn't about creativity anymore. It was about something else altogether. It was about consumerism. It was about conformity.
Now it's a bunch of small lounges, small clubs. No big club scene, no big party scene.
If some tosser turned up in a Lamborghini, in a Brooks Brothers suit, flashing his black Amex, they wouldn't even get in the front door. But they became the kind of new stars of Clubland. It wasn't the freaks anymore. It was the Wall Street yuppies, the realtors.
But New York's not the city it was 10 years ago as far as being an entertainment center that the world respects. It's not there anymore.
New York has nightlife now. Is it better or worse? Who knows? But I think we're all a little bit less that people like Peter are thrown out of the United States for reasons such as occurred here.
Other than being a tax cheat, I mean, Peter Gation didn't actually commit any crimes. It wasn't Peter Gation who murdered the Angel Melendez. It wasn't Peter Gation who killed Damon Barrett. But he did end up paying a very high price for it. And I think that's important to remember,
Peter's not a terrorist. Peter's a club person. Maybe he didn't pay all his taxes, but he gave the city what they were looking for.
Peter really knew the difference between a good party and a bad one. By the time Peter's running those 4 joints, owning those 4 joints, he was one of the best guys that ever did it.
If you asked me when I was 20 years old did I have naivety, I would have said, are you kidding, I know everything. If you asked me at 25, I would have said, well, geez, I was naive when I was 20, but it's certainly not now. And if you asked me, 5 years ago when I was 35, was I naive? I'd say, yeah, I was probably somewhat naive, but I think I'm a little more realistic now. So I would think if you asked me when I'm 50, were you naive and stupid at 40, I'll say, yeah.